Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
Welcome to the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone, bringing you practical, timely, and accurate insights so that you can more effectively lead your organization. It's Thursday, November 3rd, episode 204. Today, prices are soaring, signs are pointing to a recession, and now you need to budget for staff and programs. Well, live from New York, it's fan favorite Mikey Mac to help us focus on what really matters when budgeting for HR during a recession. Also, as the NYC human rights law creates waves throughout the country, we look into what a good faith pay range means to an employer, an applicant, and the law. As always, we welcome your thoughts and take your questions. All this and more on This Week at Work.
Great to have you all back with us this week. Welcome back, Burt Garland, to the program. We're happy to have you with us, as always, from Ogletree Deacons, a leader in employment law. Burt, I have one new word for you. Tripledemic.
Tripledemic, Phil.
Have you heard that?
No, I can't say that I have, but it doesn't sound good.
It is. I'm not sure it's as bad as it sounds, but I know our media loves it, and I know how you and I love our media and their slant. So Tripledemic is the trifecta of COVID, the flu, and RSV running rampant. And they say that is the next concern for us in the country is this tripledemic that we're experiencing.
Got it. Well, like I said, it didn't sound good. I don't particularly care for the name and don't particularly care for any sort of tripledemic or a doubledemic or a pandemic any longer.
I agree with you. Good morning, Mikey. How are you today?
Hey, good morning. Greetings from the Big Apple and the craziness we all go through with our labor laws here, which Bert will defer on that.
It's a little competition between you and California there, between New York and California. I'm not sure which one's a little more extreme than the other, but between the two of you got it covered, and Illinois does its best to follow you. So
I was going to say we've got the East Coast, the West Coast, and don't ever forget the Mid Coast of Illinois.
That's exactly right. We got a great program for you today. Thank you for joining us. We do have a poll question. I want to introduce that for you. And let's make sure we get your comments as well if we left anything out. And as always in our poll question, there is never an all or an above. So here we go. What are you least confident in planning for right now? And we have 7 options for you to select for as you're doing your budgeting for 2023. What are you least confident in planning for? Take a look at those options on our poll question and also share with us your feedback as well. There's all kinds of things that make your job very difficult, and we're here to try and help you navigate through that. And we're going to start the program today with Lawyer on the Clock. Bert, are you ready?
I am ready to roll, Phil.
All right, let's count you in. Lawyer on the clock.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
All right, let's get it rolling today. Phil, you gave me the word of tripledemic. I'm going to give you a phrase that will describe next Tuesday, and that is National Day of Unity.
There it is. I know you love that phrase, and you couldn't describe our country better on that day.
Of course, that's tongue in cheek. That is not our National Day of Unity. Feel like it's our National Day of Division, unfortunately, with the country so evenly divided across many issues. And I know we talked about it last week a little bit, but I think it bears repeating today. The state election laws. I know that most of our listeners are in the states of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. And I thought, just as a reminder, that I would share what the state's laws are as far as voting. Missouri employers must provide employees with up to 3 hours of paid time off to vote unless unless the employee has 3 consecutive non-working hours between the opening and closing of the polls. Now, the employer may specify any 3 hours between the time of opening and the time of closing the polls during which the employee may exercise the leave. Okay, so Missouri, unless the employee has 3 hours of time off, non-working time during the opening and closing of the polls, the employer otherwise has to provide 3 paid hours of time.
So Bert, let me
Illinois-
ask a
yeah.
quick question of clarity on that point.
Sure.
Let's say for some reason there's, 2 hours of time. Am I only having to give that person an hour of pay, or do I have to give them 3 hours of pay?
So the employer, you have to give the employee 3 consecutive hours of paid time off to go vote.
Okay,
So,
gotcha.
so if they don't have 3 consecutive non-working hours between the opening and closing of the polls, we have to provide them 3 hours of paid time off to go vote.
Gotcha. So it's
Okay.
not, we're not making up the difference of the available time and the time off. Gotcha.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. Also in Illinois, very similar. In Illinois, employers must provide employees with 2 hours of paid time off to vote, provided that the employee's working hours begin less than 2 hours after the opening of the polls and end less than 2 hours before the closing of the polls. In Illinois, the employees requesting the time off work to vote must make their request prior to Election Day, and the employers can set the hours during the day when employees may take the time off, and can require employees to provide proof that they use the time off to vote. So Illinois' law is a little, surprisingly, a little more strict than Missouri's law in this respect.
I'm shocked.
For our friends over in Indiana, good news for you. You all do not have a law covering time off to vote, although most private employers do end up providing employees time off to vote. Usually I see clients in Indiana that provide the time off, but it is not paid time off to vote. I will remind everybody, if you go to the link https:// law maps, one word, statelawmaps.ogletree.com. You can register on that for free. There are several state law maps that we provide to people who register. The topics that are available are ban the box, paid sick leave, personnel file laws, predictive scheduling, right to work, salary history limitations, which I know will segue nicely into the New York discussion today, sexual harassment training, state minimum wage, and of course, voting leave laws. It's a really nice interactive map. You can click on the state. It'll tell you in a pop-up box whether the state has a law in that area or not, and then it'll provide a link for you to click on to see what is specific to that law in that state.
All right,
So,
Bert, you have 1 minute and 20 seconds here, basically. So let's keep you moving.
all right. So the next one is I wanted to remind everybody that the Department of Labor issued new proposed regulation or a notice of proposed rulemaking that originally allowed for comments on independent contractor status through November 28, 2022, which is the Monday following Thanksgiving. The Department of Labor extended that deadline until December 13, 2022 to submit comments on the notice of proposed rulemaking. Just a reminder to people that a federal judge previously ruled that the Department of Labor's prior attempt to reverse the Trump era independent contractor rule was improper, in part because the agency did not provide a meaningful opportunity for the public to comment on the proposal. And so just keep that in mind, that if you, your business or other businesses want to comment on the independent contractor rule, you have till December 13, 2022 to do that. One other topic, Phil, that I thought I'd cover real quickly is just to have people go out there. Earlier this year in May, the Department of Labor issued a new fact sheet number 280 on mental health conditions in the FMLA. This is particularly difficult. It was much easier when we were dealing with the FMLA for physical injuries or impairments because those are much easier to see and frankly to diagnose. And usually when there's a physical impairment, it did not require the use of intermittent leave as much as mental illness. Just be aware that in this fact sheet 280, the Department of Labor provides for, it doesn't really change anything, but it does serve as a reminder to employers that employees can take leave for their mental health conditions. And an example they provide is one that we've probably dealt with many times, many employers, and it's very short. It says Karen, I like how they picked the name Karen these days.
No, they did not.
Is occasionally unable to work due to severe anxiety. She sees a doctor monthly to manage her symptoms. Karen uses FMLA to take time off when she is unable to work unexpectedly due to her condition and when she has a regularly scheduled appointment to see her doctor during her work shift. And that is a prime example of the difficulty of the FMLA as far as scheduling goes, because anxiety, I think, a lot of people have some form of anxiety on a day-to-day basis. And it just shows you that if you are an FMLA covered employer, that when somebody says that I'm anxious today, I'm not able to work, you have to provide FMLA for that. So a good reminder to look at that fact sheet 280.
Yeah, that is, and I in no way am making making light of mental illness.
Absolutely not.
But it does definitely make it very difficult because the degree of mental illness, I'm not sure we all understand those boundaries just yet, as well as we do physical. And I can't let this go. They did not call her Karen. They did not in that example.
They did indeed. And again, I'm not making light of it either. I'm simply introducing the fact sheet to everybody to let people know that FMLA does apply to mental health illnesses, as most of us know. And very importantly, it's a very difficult issue for employers to work through. And this fact sheet 280 does provide some guidance in that respect.
Yeah. And I think what makes it really difficult more than is understanding the degree of it, right? We can get range of motion. We can get, I'm not able to get out of bed. We can get, some of the other family care needs that people have to experience with what we consider, a serious health condition. I don't know when anxiety becomes serious, and that's the difficult part of something like anxiety, because I would say, and I think most managers and leaders who are going to be governing this would say, well, I feel anxiety every single day about something. But is it actually preventing me from going to work? For one, that might be yes. And for somebody else, it might be no, because our bodies all respond physically very different to mental illness, which is a very serious condition in some scenarios, and in other scenarios, it's not as serious. So that will and may require lots of consultation to learn our way forward in that space.
Yep. Yeah. All right, there we go.
Hey, thanks for taking double the time there, Bert. We appreciate it, but there's no lawyer we'd rather have on the clock than Mr. Garland from Ogletree. Thank you very much. All right. So, planning for HR budgets is difficult. I've had to do it for many, many, many years, and I've dealt with many outcomes, which is I get the budget that I want, but I'm told, don't you spend it. I get the budget that I want and I spend it right away because I know later they're going to take that back. Or I've even been in HR where it's like, we're not giving you a budget. If you need to spend, justify it and we'll decide. So budgeting in HR is really a difficult thing to do. And that leads us into Philburt's Forum.
You've just entered Philburt's Forum, where we peel the onion back and take a lighter look at the workplace.
So I like these memes that are out there about HR budgeting. And I've had this expression, and I'm not sure if this expression is hey, I'm excited, I got exactly what I want, or ooh, you gave me just that much. I mean, it can be interpreted either way. And if you're a Nick Cage fan, or Nicolas Cage, I'm not sure what he goes by today. We'll call him Nicolas Cage. That's how I remember him. I'm a little embarrassed to say I remember him most from one of my favorite roles when I first I was a young high schooler and I watched Valley Girl. So I hate to admit that, but Nicolas Cage that's where I was introduced to Nicolas Cage. And that's a great expression, about his HR budget and the excitement that he feels about that. And then I think there's one other fun one, and we all do the HR budget walk. We got our budget approved. We can go out and say we have a budget, but just don't spend it. All right, there you have Philburt's Phorum. And we appreciate that. Their producer, Nick, those are some great memes for Philburt's Phorum and HR budgeting. And let's get on with the program. And maybe before we get going, Nick, let's take a look at the poll results that we have thus far. All right. So what am I seeing? Employee engagement seems to be leading the way closely by talent acquisition, if I'm reading that right on the screen.
Yep, just flipped on you, Phil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Talent acquisition. It should be a talent acquisition with all the news and things I'm reading about and what we're going to get into discussion with Mikey on, but not far behind that is compensation and benefits. Mm-hmm. And I would bet it's compensation more than benefits. I'm trying to read in that. I'd appreciate anybody that made those comments to give us some clarity if they like one over the other, as far as one being a little bit more difficulty to budget and plan for. But let's take a look at that, Mike, and let's lead off with what is going on with inflation, pay raises. You made a prediction last time you were on this program. I think it came true about what was it? The Social Security and inflation. Look into your magic ball here, Mike. Help us out.
So as a reminder, last year when we first heard that Social Security was going to be increased by law, it has to be increased tied to inflation. Over 5%, I was projecting that employers are going to follow suit and that we're going to find one way or the other, whether it's base, incentive, bonus, some kind of combination, that we were going to end up with around 5%. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics latest report year over year shows a 5%.
Let me guess, 5%.
5%.
There you go.
Right. So now we're talking about coming January, we have a 8+% increase that's going to happen to Social Security. So does that mean we're going to see 8% salary or bonus combinations? I'm not quite sure it'll go that high. However, if you're not budgeting at least at the 5% level going into next year, I believe you're going to be falling behind very quickly. And that ties in with that chart about the talent acquisition being one of the primary issues that we're still dealing with, because we still do not have talent to find. They're not there. Regardless of the rumors of recession, we have so many openings and positions that need to be filled. That's not going to have any impact on what we need to do next year. Next year will be very different than any other, if we have a recession, very different than anything we've ever seen in the past, because we still have a very low unemployment rate. We still have a need for filling positions. So even if technology or other segments start having some layoffs, it's not going to change the general mix. And Phil, let me just give a quick story. Mike Rowe, who's the Dirty Jobs guy, if everybody remembers him, I was listening to a podcast that he had, and he has developed a scholarship program for kids to go to technical school, not to go to college. Because he says we need people in technical school because there's nobody to fix anything. There are no mechanics, there are no plumbers, there are no welders. And then he said that he got a call from a big shipbuilding company in Virginia saying that, hey, Mike, can you help us? We have some opening positions for welders. And he said, oh, no problem. I can, get you connected. How many do you need? 5, 10? The builder said, no, I need 200 tomorrow.
Wow.
200 welders that they cannot fill orders for freighters that's going to end up tying into our shipping. So that's the sign that we're not going to see that change going into next year, for at least for the first couple quarters.
No, I don't think so either. And I shared some of these results at your conference, Bert, which I thought was amazing last week. You had a wonderful conference. I don't know how many hundreds of people you had there, but a packed room. And I was honored to kind of talk about some of these things with Bert on stage. And there is, I don't know what our government's trying to create, or we should say the Fed is trying to create from an unemployment rate, but I know they're making every effort they can to increase inflationary results so that we will have unemployment. But let's keep in mind that, today there's almost 11 million job openings and there's, 5 million people unemployed. So for us to reverse that, we almost have to, we have to create, 15 million unemployed or 15 million, less jobs so that we can employ the 5 million and then have some competition that balances out the wages. Right. Depends how you look at that. But I just don't see us having a recession as it relates to wages. I see that continuing for quite some time. I know you're predicting into the second quarter next year, but my concern is employers are thinking, oh, I don't have to budget 5, 6, maybe 8% for next year because we're going to have a recession and therefore I won't be hiring. Well, you'll still be hiring because we're still going to be recruiting people away from your business, and you're going to have to go out and find replacement workers. And that's if you're anticipating zero growth. So I think the concept that I'm hearing people talk about, I think it's a flawed concept when I look at the raw numbers that suggest we're going to have a war on talent for quite some time. And I'm talking about years to come, not just through the second quarter.
Correct.
Even if we go into a recessionary period for a small period of time, the moment we come out of that, we're going to be right back where we're at.
Yep. And keep in mind that the numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics is total compensation increase. So it's not just base pay. So even though there are many surveys that came out this fall that said, 3-4% on the base pay adjustments, many employers and many members of AIM and our clients are providing two increases, one on the base pay, which is that normal 3 to 4%, but then they're providing a separate variable piece, a discretionary 3 or 4% to make up the difference. And that's what the Bureau of Labor Statistics counts. So when we talk about 5.6 or maybe next year, even 6 or 7%, it's a combination of all the adjustments that are made, not just the base pay adjustment by itself.
Yeah, great point there, Mike. A great point. I just want to get into a couple comments here. So I'm looking at Michelle, and I just don't want her to miss this before I get going. The comments keep coming in. Michelle's asking the question, what is RSV? I know this has got nothing to do with what we're talking about here, but RSV, Michelle, is a respiratory virus. Mostly it affects children, and the younger the child, the more risky it is. It often just comes across as a common cold and goes unrecognized and diagnosed, but it can be very, very, very serious for younger children like babies and so on. So that's something you want to watch as part of our Tripledemic. We'll be keeping an eye on our Tripledemic this year. And we have risk of RSV every year. So that's not new. They're just saying that it's actually running rampant right now. But that's the media, of course. Then Julie's made a comment here. Being in a hospital, we have to raise our rates multiple times a year right now. This is mostly due to agencies hiring licensed staff and now push us to compete and come up with creative ways to keep and get new staff. So I know, Mike, you've worked with hospitals and these agencies and so on, and it is struggling, right? They don't have enough staff coming in. And I was just talking with one of our members, Elaine, yesterday in our roundtable. And the challenge that they're having is they're under such demand. They've been overworked at hospital staff. And it starts with the physician saying, I'm only going to work 3.5 days.
Right.
right? I'm going to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, half day on Thursday, then I'm done. So when the physician doesn't work, then that changes the entire system for everyone else in the hospital supply chain, if you will.
That's right.
Nurses, caretakers, and everyone else involved. And because of lack of physicians, they can demand exactly what they want to have. I mean, the hospitals are drastically under attack right now.
Right, and there's the talk about the mental health issue you raised earlier. That's showing up more and more now in healthcare because of the stress, the hours that people are having to work, the overtime involved because of the lack of staff. They have to continue. You can't just shut down and say, everybody, sorry, we can't help you today. So, you have that added stress. And so therefore, our healthcare clients are saying, well, what do we need to do? Let's go out and find these people, which means we have to then raise our salaries again in order to try to attract people to come to us.
Yep. Hey, Mike,
So
I want to get to another comment here. Lisa, good morning to you. She is asking, where can she find some supportive information for the 5 to 6% increases that you're referring to so she can share that with her boss? Thank you very much. She loves the show. Bert, she must be talking about your section of the show. But how do we help Lisa with that, Mikey?
Well, I think the biggest site you can go to is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because that's like the official government tracking of not only inflation, but also of wages. And if you start using that, we've used that with board meetings and other, senior leadership meetings to kind of say, I'm not making this up. Here's the actual data showing what is happening. And so I would use that as your primary place to kind of refer on whereby, as you can see, it's talking costs. Yeah, so that's unit labor costs, but they do have a good tracking system that you can use.
Yeah. And Lisa, I would also say send them a link or her a link to this program. You can also get some time with Mikey here. He would be happy to sit with your leaders and talk about this. He does that for our members almost every single day. He'll come in town or he'll take the call from New York or North Carolina, wherever he happens to be working from on that particular day. So that's another way we can help you out there, Lisa. Our wage and compensation survey results also that are available to our members will also express that as well. Bert, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I thought I'd just mention, Mike and you talked about the hospital sector, the healthcare sector, and, maybe just a little economics lesson for everybody here. I know I'm a lawyer, but like to dabble in other fields.
On economics.
So, right now, I represent an airline, and we've been in union negotiations, and right now, and this comes from, you can Google this, you'll find a CNBC story on this, as well as many other stories that say right now there's a deficit of 8,000 pilots, or 11% of the total workforce in this country. 8,000 pilots. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And a lot of it has to do with COVID, and a lot of the pilots wouldn't get vaccinated, got other jobs, and are not returning to flying. There's a lot of retirement. And so this 8,000 pilot shortage is estimated to reach perhaps 30,000 pilots by 2025. That's just a few years away. Yes, that's just a few years away here.
Right.
And
now,
so,
is this your clients' numbers, or is this the union's numbers?
These are numbers that are published by CNBC in their research. Okay.
Even if it's half of that, it's
correct.
Huge number.
And so when I was traveling for work the other day, when I came home on Southwest Airlines, and I was going from the terminal down to the baggage claim area, they have that little billboard down there, that digital billboard, and it was flashing up there for an airline called Republic Air, which is one of the regional jet carriers in the country. And they say that they are paying $150 an hour to new pilots. Well, if you do the math to 2,000 hours a year, that's a $300,000 job for a new pilot. And I can tell you that in the negotiations I've been involved in, wages are increasing pretty dramatically in the air sector. American Airlines pilots just rejected another contract proposal that would have provided a 19% pay increase over 2 years. Well, when these airlines are paying this amount of money for their pilots, guess who's ultimately going to be paying for that? They're going to be passing, yeah, Mike's raising his hand there. They're ultimately going to be passing these costs on to the consumers, which is how you get into this vicious cycle of inflation. Mike, I agree with you 100%. Wages rarely go backwards. The inflation that we're seeing in wages, it's going to be there for a long time. It's going to take a long time for the rest of the economy to catch up with the wage increases that are being put into place.
Yeah. And I think with the numbers we reviewed at your program, Bert, and I've been sharing them with our members during roundtables, I see no relief in sight. And I'm not trying to create a sky is falling here. If anyone that listens to our program, they know we really do present as best we can a realistic version of what's happening. We did that throughout COVID. We do that on every topic that we discuss. But there is just a shortage of people. There's not enough people. It's not that they're not working. There's not enough people to fill the demands that we have around the U.S. And that is going to continue, recession or not.
Correct.
And it's going to take smart leadership and lots of creative thinking.
If I could just make one last comment on the chart here, you noticed employee engagement is like running number 2 on our issues.
Yes.
Keep that in mind, that it is a combination of not just pay. You have to look at all your services you're providing in human services and human resources to your employees. That makes a difference for keeping the talent you have.
Yes.
Money may get them in the door, but you still have to engage them to keep them with you. And that's going to become very critical in the next year or two.
Yep, I 100% agree. We never want to lose sight with that. And that wraps up this week at work. Join us next week when we will be talking about leading during unplanned events with a special guest, Dave Sanderson. We will see you back then, 7:30 Central Time. Thank you, Mikey. Thank you, Bert. And we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Recruiting the right person is hard. Don't be fooled by a one-size-fits-all approach to solving your unique workforce talent needs. Work with an AIM advisor to zero in on what is best for you. AIM offers a la carte services or entire system solutions. Everything from technology, job postings, recruiting, and compensation analysis to contract HR services and many more. Click on the link below to get a complete list of services and learn more about how AIM can help.